we're going to progress the physical activity week on week. Last week more balance, flexibility, today a bit more resistance, strength. Next week we're going to try and incorporate a little bit more of a cardiovascular kind of element to it in terms of actually, raising our heart rates a little bit more, even though we did, or we will today, but a bit more. With that said, obviously the resistance and strength side of things is absolutely crucial. So I'm not going to go into too much because obviously we want to get into the practical side of things. But what I would say is obviously a big part of the program for a lot of people is obviously, they come into the program and we are kind of focusing on so-called weight loss, weight management, trying to lose weight. And coaches and people will tell you all the time, right, you've got to lose weight loss is the thing to do. What I'll just quickly say to you is, it's not weight loss that we should be targeting specifically, right? It's not weight loss, right? This is really crucial. It's not your weight, i.e. the number on the scale, that has a detrimental impact on your health. It's fat, specifically. So it's not weight loss, but rather fat loss. Now, we might think, well, that's the same thing. It most certainly is not, right? So the number on the scale tells you what you weigh, fine. And yes, okay, that's somewhat important, and people talk about BMI, so-called body mass index, weight in relation to height. Really, the most important thing is not what you weigh, but what the quality of that weight is, i.e. the composition of that weight, your body composition, which relates to the ratio of your weight that is muscle compared to fat. So anyone can lose weight. Not to say that it's easy, I'm not saying it's easy, but anyone can lose weight. But the real question has to come up, which is, okay, I've lost weight, what type of weight have I lost? Because someone might very well lose 10 kilos over a period of time, whatever the period of time might be. But the real question should be, right, how many of those 10 kilos were lost from muscle versus from fat? Now, it's not quite as cut and dry as that, because you obviously lose water weight and so on and so forth, but the main components that we have some degree of control over, muscles and fat. So in most circumstances, when people lose weight, particularly let's say they lose it, we'll use that example as 10 kilos, unfortunately the majority of the time is a lot of that will be from muscle as opposed to from fat. Because generally speaking, we tend to make a couple of mistakes. First and foremost is, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's unlikely, but generally speaking, nobody does anything resistance or strength based. Broadly speaking, if you ask a group of people, do you do any exercise? Maybe they say yes. What do you do? Most people exclusively do cardiovascular based exercise. Right? Most people exclusively do cardiovascular based exercise. Let me just close that door. So most people exclusively do cardiovascular based exercise, right? They do walking or, it's mainly walking. Nothing wrong with that. Cardiovascular exercise is extremely important. Heart, lungs, fitness, stamina, endurance, recovery, so on and so forth. But if we don't incorporate anything resistance or strength based, which works, the muscle, the joints, the flexibility, the mobility, the stability, the balance, bone density, risk of arthritis, etc., big oversight. But particularly on that body composition side of things, the bottom line with muscle is if you do not use it, you lose it. So a big factor that really influences that body composition is, at any time, but particularly if you're trying to lose weight, are you engaging in any resistance and strength-based exercise? And it's not necessarily about building muscle, although not that that's a bad thing. At the very bare minimum, it's about retaining what you've got. Every single one of you has a certain amount of muscle right now, but every week that goes by that we do not use that muscle, that is diminishing. Hence, obviously, we're going to be doing some today. There are two other elements just quickly. We have to use the muscle, we have to feed the muscle, i.e. protein, sufficient protein. So protein is the building block for muscle cells and tissue. And thirdly, you have to rest the muscle. What that really means is sleep. Because of course, yes, growth and repair happens through nutrition, i.e. protein, but the most of our growth and repair, of course, happens during sleep. Now, sleep is a little bit more of a tricky one, but we'll get to that. But the two things I mentioned beforehand, using and feeding the muscles, are things that are almost instantly accessible. Straight away from today, but straight away from today, we could all, over the next week, go away and use and feed the muscle more appropriately. Look, the sleep one, we can also do, but it might take a lot longer than just a few days off. It's not a click of the fingers. So, I just thought I'd just give that little bit of a spiel beforehand, before getting into it, just so we really understand how important this stuff is going to be. Does that make a bit of sense to begin with? Yeah? Fantastic. All right. So what I'm going to take you through is a variety of resistance exercises for the whole body, starting from the shoulders, going into the arms, chest, back, core strength, particularly, and then we'll get into the lower body, the legs, and so on and so forth. Perfect. So, nice and simple. Maybe you've used resistance bands before. Thankfully, it's not a high-tech computer, it's nothing too over the top, but there are just one or two pointers that I would say. First and foremost, further apart my hands are, obviously the less resistant it is, the looser it is. Closer together my hands are, slightly more resistant. If I needed to be more resistant for any exercises, I might wrap my hands slightly, or perhaps I might even fold the band in half. Or, you know, in our own lives, in our own time, we might buy our own bands and they might be slightly more resistant. Obviously, these are kind of on the lower end. When we get to some of the exercises, if you do want one that's either more or less resistant, I do have a couple of different options, but this should be okay. Only other thing is, contrary to lifting a weight, now I know this is not a weight, but it is a weight, but contrary to when you lift a weight, i.e. you are kind of activating the muscle, let's say, on the way up of lifting, right? But on the way down, you don't really do much in the sense of most of that is gravity. Obviously, this is not the case with the band, which is one of the plus sides of bands, to be fair, is that you don't just have to engage the muscle on the way up, but obviously you have to engage it on the way down because it's not gravity, it's the fact that it pops back. Now, the reason why I did that to grab your attention is because quite often people will use the band as if it were a weight. Now, this isn't an exercise we're going to do, but what I mean is most people will end up going like this, right? They'll go like that, and they'll just let it pop back, and they'll kind of go like this. Obviously, that's not what we want to do. So one of the benefits is we're going to control it on the way out, but also the way back. So you get kind of double the engagement, as it were. Those are the only 2 pointers. Other than that, first exercise we're going to do is going to be for the shoulder muscles. Nice and simple. So, first and foremost, and if anyone needs a longer band, because the shorter the band is, the tighter it's going to be, so if you have any troubles, we'll get a longer one out. First what we're going to do, we're just going to lay the band on the floor, we're going to step on with 1 or 2 feet, up to you. Now, crucially here, the further this way I step, obviously the looser it's going to be, the further that way I step, the tighter it's going to be. Now, I'm going to get a decent grip of the band here, and I'm just going to bring my hand to the side. And I would like, ideally, that band to have a bit of tension in it. I.e., you know, if I was holding it kind of like this, well, it's a bit disengaged. So I just want to get it to the point of slightly taut. That doesn't have to be, obviously, over the top. What we're going to do here is what is referred to as a side raise. Relatively straightforward. All we're going to do is I'm just going to lift my arm up to about here, and I'm going to control it down. Now, crucially, try to keep the tension in the band, so don't go all the way to the point of losing it. What we're going to do here is, we're going to do 12 repetitions on one arm, switch over and do 12 on the other arm, and then we're going to repeat that again. So we'll do it 2 times, with about maybe a 30 to 45 second break in between. So very simply, breathe out on the way up, control down. Breathe out on the way up, and control down. At your own pace, no rush, take your time. We do not need to keep up with the person next to us or anything like that. So the band should be movable. You should be able to do it, but it should still, you know, be a little bit challenging. So it shouldn't be impossible to move, of course. But at the same time, it shouldn't be just absolutely like the easiest thing going. So next exercise, we're going to move into the arms. So we can kind of really split the arms into 2 main areas for most people. We're going to do an exercise for the biceps, front of the arm, one for the triceps, the back of the arm. Nice and simple. For the biceps, there is really only one bicep exercise that exists, essentially. There are variations of different ways to do it, but essentially, it's going to be a bicep curl of some sort. So nice and simple, I'm going to step on the band with both feet. I'm going to step on the band with both feet. I'm going to get a decent grip on the bands, rotate my palms to be facing forward, and quite nice and simply, I'm just going to obviously curl up, squeeze the biceps, and control down. And here we're going to do 20 of these, or aim for 20 at the very least, and again we'll have a little break in between the first 20, and then we'll repeat the second 20. But squeeze in as you come up, and if it's too easy, obviously hold the band a little bit further down, and slow the movement down. Nice and controlled all the way up, and all the way down. So, perfect. Curling up, controlling down. Curling up, and I can breathe out on the way up. Take a breath in at the bottom. Exhale as I come up, and squeeze those biceps. Perfect. Like I said, aim for 20. If you can't quite make it to 20 because it's getting too painful, then if you fall short of 20 and you get to 12, 15, that will be fine. If you can get to 20, fantastic. Have a little breather and then do a second round. Once we've done 2 lots of 20, obviously just relax there, and then we're going to do our exercise for the tricep. Now, to be fair, there are a variety of different ways we can target the tricep. We're going to go with one particular exercise today, and over the weeks we'll add a few other tricep exercises in. So, what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to grab the band in this kind of upside down U type shape, and I'm going to bring my elbows into my side like so, in this kind of 90-degree right angle. Now, crucial point here is the elbows do not leave my side. We don't want them flaring outwards. They're going to stay tucked in, okay? Second thing is, as I've said all along, I want the band, at the moment it's got slack in it. I want to take the slack out of it. Because now, as soon as I do that little movement of, now I've engaged the muscles, and we're going to remain in this position for the entirety of the exercise, okay? So again, we're going to aim for 20 of these, although we might fall short of 20 because these are quite tough. What we're going to do here is what is referred to as an external rotation, which is also going to benefit the shoulder muscles, but you will feel it in the triceps, and in general it's good for posture as well. So anyway, from there, take the tension out of the band, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to externally rotate my palms outwards and control back, keeping the tension in the band. And remember, like I said, keeping those elbows tight to the body. This is quite a tough one, so if you need to loosen up the band, feel free, but very good for the shoulder muscles, but also, as you'll feel, quite a burn in the tricep as well. Make sure you're breathing, take your time, and yeah, if you need to loosen up the band, or if you can't quite make it to 20, obviously just do what you can. If you can get to at least 10, that will be great. How's anyone finding that one? Yeah? Try to, as much as you can, try to keep those elbows tucked in, because this would be a very different exercise. It's this specifically. It's like my elbow is like a hinge, like a door swinging open almost. Once we've done that, we're going to get into an exercise for the chest and an exercise for the back. Now, here we're going to need someone to help us to hold the other end of the band. If you were to do it at home or wherever you were going to do it, you would just need somewhere to attach the band that was relatively solid. Perfect. So I'm going to attach the band to a fixed object, whatever it might be, as long as it's not going to fly off anywhere, or perhaps a partner, right? I'm going to turn around, grab the handles of the band, bring the band over my elbows, okay? And I'm just going to take a little step forward, and then I'm going to let go and hit her right in the face. I'm just joking. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to press my arms forward and meet my fists together, okay? So they're going to start back here, kind of where your armpits are, the side of your chest, and then you're going to press forwards and bring those fists together. So not press just forwards like so, but more pressing in this kind of closed motion pattern. So from here, I'm going to press and close my fists together, because that's going to contract those chest muscles. So try not to press just like that. Press in and squeeze. And obviously I can move a little bit further and make it a little bit harder. Press and squeeze. Yeah? Right, while we're at it, I will just quickly demonstrate the second exercise, because we'll also need the partner. Just go and stand in there again for me. So, that was a pushing exercise, mainly for the chest, a little bit of triceps. But now we're going to do the opposite, a pulling exercise, a rowing exercise for the back muscles. So, again, I'm going to loop the band off somewhere, or get my partner to hold the loop. Yeah, no, the loop, yeah, sorry, go for it. This time, complete opposite. I'm going to step away, but obviously this way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to row back, bring my elbows back behind my body, squeeze my shoulder blades together, and control forwards. Row back, squeeze, control forwards. Row back, squeeze, control forwards. And obviously again, if I want to make it harder, either I move further away, or my partner, or whatever it might be. Row back, the elbows behind the body, squeeze the shoulder blades together, control forwards. Yeah? So from there we're going to move into core strength, okay? Now, I showed you one exercise for core last week, but I'll show you it again just for the purpose of the video, so that obviously we can have it shared. But as I said last week, the abdominal muscles are what we would refer to as stabilizing muscles. Given that they're called stabilizing muscles, stability, the way that we activate them is generally by either unbalancing the body, forcing them to stabilize, or applying resistance. Last week we did the unbalancing, we're now going to add the resistance, but I will just quickly demonstrate the unbalancing version. Everyone was here for it, so you will remember, but obviously for yourself as well, and like I said, so that we have it. So nice and simply, just as a reminder, obviously what we did last week, we were sat on the chair, yeah, good with that? So we're sat on the chair, we slid somewhat forward. The more forward you slide, harder it is, closer to the back of the chair that you are, the easier it is. From there, so we get kind of front, to the front of it, hold on to the bottom if necessary, and obviously what we did there was we slightly leaned back and lifted our feet off the ground. And that was the exercise from last week. And obviously just holding that position, breathing, we don't hold our breath, breathe out through the mouth, down into the diaphragm. And obviously we're going to feel it on our hip flexors because we're suspending our legs, but of course the lower back and core muscles preventing me from, falling off. Apart from the fact that the chair's very slippery, so I keep sliding back, but preventing me from losing balance, right? And as I said, obviously if you take one hand as you're doing it and place it at the top of your abdomen, underneath your chest, you should feel that contraction, the stabilizing of those muscles. And obviously, like I said last week, perhaps we hold it for 10, 15, 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, whatever you can do, and a few rounds of that. So that was last week. This week, however, we'll get that one out of the way for the moment. Now we're going to apply resistance, i.e. the band. So once again, you are going to need someone to hold the band for you. So if I can I might as well just borrow you one more time. If you just come and stand here, we've got our camera woman helping us out here. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply resistance to the core and the whole body essentially. This time I'm going to pass the handles to my partner, okay? Or tie the band off wherever I'm going to tie it off to. I'm going to stand side on from wherever this fixed point is, partner or otherwise. I'm going to loop my closest hand into the band, okay? Interlock my hands together. Now I want my fists, my hands to be in the center of my chest, not over here, center of my chest. From there, I'm going to bring my arms out in front of me and I'm going to take a step to the side. And that's it, that's the exercise. Obviously what's happening here is the resistance is pulling me that way. It's pulling me and I want to, but obviously I'm resisting against it. So all that kind of torque, all that pressure is going through the core, through the whole body. You're going to feel it in your legs, you're going to feel it a lot in your lower back, and obviously I can move a little bit further away and hold it. And perhaps you'll hold for 30 to 60 seconds, and then I'll return and do the same the other way. Breathe in, hold in, nice and stable. Obviously, if you want to make it harder, you can either move further away, or in this case, you could also ask your partner just to reel more of the band into their hand. Yeah, precisely, right? And then just hold it. Yeah. Last couple of exercises for the lower body, for the legs, right? So, a number of different leg exercises you can do. Very important movement pattern, let's say, is what many people come across, which is a squat. However, there are many different ways of doing a squat, and we're going to do a very kind of, let's say, entry-level way of doing it. So, nice and simple, we're going to utilize the chair. And really, this isn't just as a squat, it's also kind of a good practice, broadly speaking, of standing up and sitting down, essentially. Because if you just ask most people just to do a squat, most people will just look like Bambi on ice, generally speaking. But if you ask people to do what I'm about to get you to do, everyone manages to do it. So all we're going to do, nice and simple, because one of the things we do when we stand up from chairs or sofas or whatever it might be, we tend to stand up from the back of the chair. We tend to kind of go like this, which not necessarily the end of the world per se, but if you are prone to lower back issues here and there, putting all that pressure onto your lower back and kind of using momentum maybe isn't ideal. The reason why we end up doing that is because all of our body weight is here, whereas our legs are here. So if you want to use your legs, you have to shift your body weight forwards. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to shift forwards so that my knees, my shins are over my feet, even over my toes. Feet flat on the ground, not very wide, not very close, just somewhere in the middle. I don't need to stand very upright like this, or sit rather very upright like this. That's not normal. leaning forward is fine. I still have a neutral spine. I'm not like this, but you don't need to stand upright because then again, body weight's there. So I can even bring my, like that, hands there, whatever you want. And essentially what we're going to do there is, you're going to think about just push the ground away. Push the ground away. And then when you sit down, you want to imagine trying to sit down as quietly as possible. And then push the ground away. Sit down as quietly as possible. Push the ground away. And essentially, we're doing a squat. But like I said, if you take the chair away, all of a sudden, everyone's, what's going on? But again, obviously what we're doing there, using the quad muscles, the thighs, targeting the muscles in and around the knees. Very, very effective. Very, very effective. As a good practice in general, standing up and sitting down, but most certainly as a nice way of, a controlled way of doing the so-called squat motion. So, another leg exercise that we can do, and again, we'll have more over the weeks. This time we're going to use the band. Very straightforward. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to loop the band under my foot, like so. I'm going to sit forwards, but I'm going to lean back, even possibly to the point of leaning onto the back of the chair, because I need space for this one, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my leg up, and I'm going to press against the resistance of the band. Control, press, so bring the knee up, press, as if you're trying to push a door open, or push a chair, sliding, pushing something away. And again, I might do 10 to 15 on one side and perhaps the same on the other side. And obviously what's good about this one is it's not load bearing, i.e. you're not putting all of your body weight through the joints of the knees, right? Which, if you do have any knee issues, can sometimes be a bit of a problem whilst you have an injury or something like that. So this is almost similar to doing this type of exercise underwater, because it's not really load bearing, because the weight is all going through this band and you're kind of suspended. So it's still a good way of targeting the quad muscles, but in a bit more of a controlled manner. How is anyone finding that one? Yeah? Yeah, it's quite, because it's very good to incorporate unilateral exercises, isolate each muscle group in its own right, so that, we might have a weaker side or a stronger side. When you isolate them in unilateral exercises, there's no escape for the weaker side. So you get to target it. And particularly if you have one knee or whatever that has a bit of an injury, give it that kind of focus, that pedestal that it needs.